Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's boardzy, and these are going to be my thoughts on the Orbital Pathfinder after around 10 days of having this new batch unit. I'm going to cover the features, but also just my thoughts on the configuration I have and the concept of the mouse itself. I will say, compared to the pre-release 3D printed unit that they sent reviewers, this is a legitimately solid quality product. There is... it's not going to feel as solid as a GPX Viper V3 Pro, let's say, but in terms of actual use, I have had no issues with creaking, applying pressure to the hump, like it hasn't moved around at all. Honestly, besides a slight side button quality issue, this is rock solid. So credit where it's due to the team. They did promise that the quality would be way improved, but I just had no way of knowing. Now that I have it in hand, it is true. And I can say one tip is for the sides. It seems like there's minimal creaking to begin with, but if you do add one of the spacers, it seems to minimize it even more and give it a bit more of a solid feel. And this unit does weigh in at 55 grams. I have a spacer on both sides. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of embarrassed by the shape configuration. I just use the average on the left side and the average on the right side, and a medium hump. I am just extremely fucking basic, I guess. And the problem with this is my main issue with the mouse mark is I'm just tired of using the same shapes year after year after year, and I get something like this, which actually has like unlimited potential when it comes to shapes, and I just pretty much make a small mouse or small claw grip mouse configuration that works for me. And I can say like this is best described as a wider OP1, flatter sides, farther back hump. And if you guys remember the Final Mouse Starlight 12 mod from Infinity Mice, that is kind of how this hump position feels. And yeah, one other combination I enjoyed was the same left side and hump configuration, but adding the extra claw to the right side with no spacer. And it is really cool that I can bring it from just like an average symmetrical mouse to having an asymmetrical feeling. But it doesn't really, I don't feel like I play any better with this necessarily. And the slash and wave configurations are just, they're too small, the cutouts on the right side for my fingers, so it's just very uncomfortable. But it just kind of goes to show that this project actually embraced the idea of personal preference and the motto that shape is king. Like, this wave shape is truly the worst, like, mouse feeling on the right side I've ever experienced, but it just doesn't matter, because I can pop it out. You can just pop in a shape you're comfortable with and go on about your day. But I will say, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The one issue that I really have is side button quality, and it is a shame because I was able to use this mouse in Fortnite. I still am, but there is just a lot of play, and the side-to-side wobble and looseness, like the shape of the mouse, the side buttons are also interchangeable. They do have versions that are larger. Let's say if you use the spacers on the side so they protrude from the mouse, but this interchangeable nature makes them very easy to take out, and that alone isn't the issue. But you notice that wobble, the issue actually seems to originate from the inner housing of the button, so this is definitely something that for the next batch they could just like tune up the tolerances, and I think the issue would be a bit more minimal. But in its current state, there is definitely some side-to-side wobble on the side buttons, but really not too much like feeling of mushiness or anything. But it's definitely not my preferred mouse to use for Fortnite. But yeah, given the state of general side button quality on mice, the fact this is modular, it does make sense that there were going to be some issues, but at $190, you do expect near perfection, probably. And that leads me to my next example, which is the scroll wheel looks to be off-center, doesn't impact performance or anything. It is just something I noticed. And yeah, now for the clicks, these are using Omron opticals, and when I first got the mouse, on the first press, it did feel stiff, but now that I've used it more, a little bit of pre-travel has developed on the left click, so I really don't have that first click stiffness unless even clicking pretty far down, it's no issue. These do have a pretty fast rebound. They're definitely spammable. The right click, there is a good amount of pre-travel, but yeah, really no quality issues. Like, I haven't noticed any side-to-side grinding, creaking in actual use. And yeah, in general, I'd say these are like an 8, 8.5 out of 10 when it comes to the click implementation. And for reference, I'd say Endgame Gear's clicks are like a 9.5 or a 10. So they're definitely not as light, fast rebound, spammable as that. But I think for most people, in-game won't have any issues with these. And yeah, they also nailed aspects like the coating. Like, each individual piece has a solid rubberized coating. The main body as well has the same coating, and this is just an elite, like, up there with the best of the best, in my opinion, for like a rubberized matte coating. I know this might seem like I'm glazing the mouse, but it's just, it feels very legitimate. It doesn't feel like a knockoff in hand whatsoever. I know I mentioned the build quality, but I'll show, like, I'm squeezing it practically as hard as I can, not a single creak. Maybe if I go like towards the bottom, you can hear something. But yeah, it is just a solid build, solid clicks, solid sensor implementation. I remember at first I was pretty skeptical when I got the first unit because it was limited to 1K. They said they got scammed by the original firmware team they tried to work with. But this 8K 3950 implementation, obviously I've mostly been testing on 1 and 2K. It just felt great. You know, it passed my highly subjective sensor standard test. Nothing felt like sluggish or just sloppy about the input. And the thing with the sensor position is you can kind of change it based on the hump you use and how many spacers you put in. Like if I had 2 spacers in, my thumb in relation to the sensor position is going to be much lower. And it's just come to my attention that the hump I've actually been maining is the high hump and not the medium. So that's a bit awkward. I'll have to go back and edit that however many times I mentioned it. But yeah, you can see obviously I didn't think it was even the high hump. So it's not a ZA13 in terms of the height. This is actually the medium, and you can see it slopes down more aggressively. And what the high hump offers, I would call it more of a elongated hump even, because it does, even without a spacer, get pretty far back in your hand. It's nice, it's like bulbous, easy to control. But yeah, I was just lapse in my judgment. Happens when you're retired. But yeah, now my correct configuration is the average left side, the high hump, and then average right side with the 1mm spacer on each. So what that gave me really is, I do appreciate the fine tuning, because without the spacers, the shape feels a bit thin. It doesn't feel ideal for my hand. So this is a cool project. At $190 for a basic shape like this, honestly, you are probably better off just finding like a production style mouse for cheaper. But if you do like the experimentation, like you have the passion to kind of design your own mouse, I could totally see this being worthy. And like I mentioned, it's not a letdown in terms of quality, really, besides the side button. So if you are like a Fortnite main, or you know that's going to be a big deal, maybe hold off for the next batch. But yeah, just performance and feeling wise, this is definitely up there with some elite mice, which at the price point you expect, but given the modular nature and just for, as a reviewer, how poor, rough around the edges the pre-production unit was, this was almost an unbelievably good experience. But I do feel like, at least for myself, I didn't take full advantage of the modularity, or at least that's like what I see based on some of the like layouts I see on Twitter. I've tried them out and it's just, they don't feel right at all. So maybe it's just my preference is that different, or people just get this and they feel a need to try something obscure. I don't really know, but I'm just sharing what worked for me. This was a fine gaming mouse. Any other questions you guys have, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, that's gonna be all for this video. Probably won't keep this in my rotation in the long term, but I could see myself honestly experimenting with it a bit. Jesus. And yeah, as for a seal of approval, I feel like this mouse almost transcends that concept. Like, it has to earn your personal seal of approval. Like, there were plenty of configurations that felt good for me, none of them that felt like better than just any other option on the market. And there are some limiting factors, especially in the hump department. I'm happy that I enjoy the high hump, but some people seem to enjoy the right-handed one, but it just doesn't feel great for me. And I think there will be a like second revolution with this mouse when people start actually 3D printing their own swappable pieces and we see some more obscure shapes. But yeah, that's going to be all for this video. I do think in a pretty weak year so far for gaming mice, 2025, this is definitely the best, or at least the most interesting, innovative mouse that has released. So like and sub if you enjoyed. Peace out.